What's up, YouTubing wizards and other people? Today I'm gonna discuss a topic that is it's something that you really need to address if you have kids or, you know, whoever you are. I mean, it is really a big issue. What defines something as being mature or immature? Now, the thing that prompted me to ask this question was I was watching a whole bunch of anime rants about, maturity. And I wanted to point out the example that, I was only 13 when I watched Elven Light. I was only like 12 when I watched things like Neon Genesis Evangelion and all those kinds of series. I was still really young when I saw those. And I am feeling like shit, but I sound strange. But I had watched all sorts of things. Ghost in the Shell. I'm just using anime references. My parents they were not strict at all about mature content. Like, if I was 12 years, my parents let my sister watch 50 Shades of Grey. She's only 12. And I had objections about that. I'm like, that's way too mature for someone like her to be watching. Their counter argument was that she's going to learn this one day or another. It'd be best if we just got it out of the way now. But she's still so young, in my opinion, that she could get the wrong things from it. Like that having sex is okay. And I'm not going to say that having sex is bad, but you have to do it responsibly or something bad's going to happen. Either you're going to get pregnant or going to get an STD. No, there's so many things that could go wrong there. Not even thinking about on top of that he's a freaking sadist. Well, not really. I mean, he calls himself something else, but that's how I saw it. He's a sadist. He gets pleasure from giving pain. Even though I have seen 50 Shades of Grey, so I know what he called him. I can't remember what he called himself, but that's my counter argument with that. But with all these mainstream animes coming out, like Tokyo Ghoul, Parasite, Attack on Titan, extremely graphic animes. And they're not even really that sexual. They're just blood and guts. I mean, and it's about as bad as like buying your 13-year-old the new Fallout game. Like, one of my mom's co-workers asked me if she thought if she thought it was okay to buy her 6-year-old son the new Fallout game. I straight up told her no. Absolutely not. I mean, I also took into consideration that she is of African American heritage and that they have a long history of picking up things like drug use, violence, that sort of stuff. And you know that the Fallout series is chock-load of violence and drug use and alcoholism, and you're free to make any choice that you want, basically. And I just feel that that's too much for a 6-year-old, for a 7-year-old, for an 8-year-old to handle. Now, I understand that these games have these age ratings on them, but I don't feel that the game should be restricted for just 17 and 18-year-olds. I mean, if you're 15 or 16 years old and you're questioning things, I think, yeah, you should let them play this game, but you should tell them everything that's wrong with it and everything that you disagree about. Like Grand Theft Auto, I see a whole bunch of fucking 10, 11-year-olds playing the new Grand Theft Auto games. And it's like, are you fucking serious? Do you want your kid to grow up to be a mass murderer? I mean, there are a lot of opinions on that. I mean, I understand that, they're not going to pick up anything, it's just a video game. Bullshit. If you're interacting with something, you're learning something. And that's from personal preference. And scientifically, if you interact with something, you're more likely to learn things from it. That's kind of the blessing and the curse of video games, is that you interact with it, therefore you learn from it, whether you want to or not. Whether it's problem solving, strategy, a variety of different things come from playing video games, despite what video game you play. Like, you play Call of Duty every day, you learn tactical strategy, and you learn advantageous positioning, and there's so many different things that you learn from video games that they don't take into account. Now the counter argument is, what do you learn from Fallout? I wouldn't really put this under the new Fallout, but in previous Fallouts, I feel like it taught you that every action that you take has a consequence, whether positive or negative. I really didn't feel that as much in this Fallout. I felt like this Fallout was more story driven rather than morality driven. I mean, yeah, you can choose the Brotherhood of Steel, but it's not really a villain's ending, like joining Kaisar's Legion. You know, I never played Fallout 3, so if you know what the bad choice was in that game, be sure to post it in the comments. Going back to topic, there are tons of mature TV shows like Gotham and Game of Thrones. Even though that's HBO, it's still very mature, and you can watch it online anywhere you want, basically. Now, there is a counter argument. Why would I let my kid watch Game of Thrones over 50 Shades of Grey? When there's more violence, there's more sexuality. There's real world choices too, though. Like, you see when someone makes a mistake, how that comes back to haunt them. Like Joffrey, him dying, and all of his tyrannical choices. I want to consider that mature. But the thing that really brought me to this was, in anime, I wanted to use that as an example. The difference between shoujo anime and, I forget what the other one's called, but a little boy's anime and an older boy's anime. What's the difference? There is no difference. All people from all age brackets watch them because it has that thrill to it, I suppose. I mean, that's why I watch it. I enjoy watching it because there's a thrill there. But animes like, I don't know, like romance anime or I forget the name of that one anime where he goes to college and he has like a porn addiction. And then he meets this flat-chested girl, and he ends up falling in love with her, and she wants to, like, commit suicide or something. I don't remember what it's called. It's like NHMM or some shit like that. I feel that's a way more mature anime, because it discusses topics of addiction and personal life and plot, and it's something that I feel a child would have a hard time understanding properly. But then again, the counter argument is, would you consider To Love Ru or ichi anime like that to be mature? Yes, because they heavily discuss topics of sexuality. And unless you're old enough, unless you've hit puberty, you won't truly understand what sexuality means. Like, everyone bashes on gay people. They didn't make that choice to want to feel love for another man or another woman. It was kind of forced upon them. It's biology. It's not something you can change personally. I mean, you can lie to yourself and you can lie to everyone else, but it won't actually change your feelings. Your emotions will still run rampant for this person or that. There's just so many factors to take in when considering if something is mature or not. And I feel like we're coming into an age where violence and sexuality shouldn't be frowned upon as mature. I feel like we're coming out of that because it's a very scientific thing. Both of them are. I mean, if you want to kill somebody for no good reason, it's because you have a psychological problem and you need help. If you want to go off and have sex with every woman, that's your lust taking into account and you not being able to control your sexuality. And I feel that these topics should be discussed, just as I believe that the topic of sexual education should be taught in school around the world. Because you see women getting pregnant at 14. And some people would say, it's because of sexuality on TV, because of movies. No, it's not because of those things. It's because you don't want to talk about them at a young age. You want to wait until they're 18, 19, 20 to talk about it. But by that time, it's already too late. They've already gone and had sex. They've already gone and sucked some dude's dick or licked some girl's pussy. Sexuality should be discussed at a younger age so that it is understood more clearly, like language. Sex is a form of language in a sort, because I would like to say it's the language of touch, whereas violence it's not so much a language as it's a mindset. If someone grows up playing these violent video games and they're never taught that this violence isn't accepted in the world, of course they're going to grow up to be psychopaths because they don't know anything else. No, I feel that I'm lucky because I have such open parents. They when I turned 13, when I hit my puberty, I started masturbating. They came up to me and they straight up told me. They didn't hide it. They weren't shy about it. They talked to me as if it were something about science, and it was. Like, I feel like kids, they're lied to so much about sexuality and these things when it shouldn't be a lie. It shouldn't be frowned upon or marketed on. It should be a scientific thing that we talk about with our kids because it needs to be known. Things like history and the science of the world and physics, they should all be on the back burner compared to what goes on in your body and what goes on in your day-to-day life. Like, yeah, I think you should learn history so that you can learn the mistakes of the past. But things that portray to your body and the right now, they should be more important and be put on the top of the list. Like, I feel like school works in a bracket where they teach you basic things like speech, math, basic history, how we got here, basically. But they don't teach you about your body, your eyes, the perceived world. They don't tell you that the world is crafted for those who have money. They never tell you that as a kid. They expect you to learn it on your own. And eventually you do when you realize, oh, I'm dirt-ass poor and I'll never achieve anything because you have to have money to make money. And that's wrong. That is 100% wrong. If you have a good idea, you can market it and you can make money from it. No money spent whatsoever. But that's getting off topic. We were talking about what makes something mature or not. And I feel that our idea of maturity needs to be changed very badly. Like, sex isn't something to be frowned upon. Violence is something to be frowned upon. I agree, but then the argument comes that most things are violent nowadays. Even basic cartoons are violent. And I say, yeah, they are. But violence is one of the things that we raised ourselves on, that this society and this world was built upon. Do you not realize that the foundation of our world was built upon the bodies of those who put the work forward? Basically what I'm saying is that this world was built on the blood, sweat, and tears of the working class. And there are people who are opening their eyes now to see that violence is a bad thing, that we need to do something about it, that gun control needs to be done. Terrorism, it's all spawned upon conflict. And they always want to say, oh, one side is right, one side is wrong. No. Both sides usually have a reason for doing what they're doing. And they don't talk about that anymore. Like Star Wars is a good example, how Anakin turned to the dark side to protect the love of his life. That is an amazing example of how good and bad have pros and cons. Like, I guess I'm not justifying I'm not justifying the terrorists' actions, but I want you to understand that they're doing this because they're being prejudiced, and the people are prejudiced towards them, and that they don't get these things that first world countries get, like clean water, electricity, fossil fuels whenever they feel like, a job, money, love in their life. These things they don't understand because they weren't raised with them. The foundations of their society weren't built on these things. And we try to take away the things that their society was built upon, like slavery, what else? Control over the people and women. We frown upon these things, but you have to understand that their society was built on these things. That you can't expect someone to change their entire lifestyle just because you don't agree with it. And now, I'm not justifying their actions. I still believe that killing is an unnecessary byproduct of prejudice. But it's a necessary byproduct at the same time as it is unnecessary. I mean, everyone says that we will fight for what we believe in. Yeah, You will, and you'll die for what you believe in. Same can be said for them. They will fight and die for what they believe in, whether it's wrong or right. It's their choice. Everyone has a personal opinion, which is what brings me back to the idea of maturity and content. It's all based upon what you think and what you think is right or wrong. And I'm not going to tell you to go and take away all of your kids' Mario games simply because it has a little bit of violence, or take away all of their Call of Duty games because it talks about war. I'm not going to tell you to do that. It's all based on your personal preference and what you think is right and wrong in this world. But I seriously need you to realize that sexuality is not one of those things. It should be talked about rather than shunned. Because if once children understand that sex is a natural part of life, that masturbation is a natural part of life, clarity will be given, and the understanding that sex without a relationship is nothing. It is simply a moment of feel good. It's basically just as bad as taking drugs, is what it is. I guess I'm gonna wrap that up. Well, guys, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you have your own opinion, please leave it in the comment section below. I'm always open for more suggestions. Sometimes someone's opinion can open my eyes to something I didn't even realize. I'm not a closed-minded person. I hope you got something from it. If you did or didn't, peace out.